wipes Lewis Brown.
And historic hat-trick for Fortek and Luke Browning here at Alton Park.
Round the outside is going to be a virtual dead heat between the two of them. Jordan Witt has his nose in front. Here comes Gelzinis, who I think was just ahead. Gelzinis takes the place on the championship by 37 thousandths of a second.
And Ben Green's going to take his first double win. The Century team are delighted.
Oh, they're sideways, completely sideways. Gets it back together, holds it. What a save by Plato.
But John Cleland is attacking Soper. He's up on two wheels. He attacks again as they go to the right-hander and Lovely. And they both spin. They're both out. Soper and Cleland both out of the race.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to The Undercut. It's the Downforce Radio British Touring Car Podcast. I'm Jake Sanson. He's Paul O'Neill. Well, Snetterton, Paul. It was good to be back. And a nice weather for a change. That was good to see. Obviously, it's been a bit of a tricky start to the year in terms of weather, but thank goodness the sunshine was out for Snet.
Yeah, it was like two different seasons completely, wasn't it? We went to Thruxton. It was cold, damp, wet, dry, damp, cold, wet, slicks, wet, penalties, and then we get to Snetterton. Fans are back. It was like a different dimension. It was like going to a different planet. And I think the most impressive thing for me for the whole of Snetterton was the fact that it looked like nobody wore suntan lotion for the 4,000 crowd that were back there. So it was, it was great to see the fans back, like we spoke about on the TV. But it was also, Jake, it was brilliant to be back and to a circuit which I actually really like. A lot of drivers say that they don't like it so much, but it's got everything, fast corners, slow corners, technical, traction, and quorum at the very end of the lap. So great circuit, great to have the fans back, and I was really pleased, mate. So it's good to be joining you again on the show.
Excellent. And of course, with everybody wearing their COVID-19 masks and the suntan, I'm guessing they all have like Batman and Robin sweat marks now, do they, everybody? They're all there.
Yeah, there was a few interesting looking people, mate, but it wasn't the masks that was making it was a lot of the Jeff Army lot were making banners with my name on, so that was nice. Yeah,
it's wonderful. Yeah, I mean let's talk about that a little bit, because that is such a big story, really, in the fact that this is the first time in over a year that fans were allowed to come back to the British Touring Car Championship, because we talk about the sport and the racing being so good, but let's be fair, the British Touring Cars is not the British Touring Cars without the fan base. It was nice to have them back.
Yeah, the business model, Jake, of British touring cars is it doesn't just include the fans. Its foundations are on the fans. The reason I watch it, the reason you watch it, the reason the fans watch it, and the reason ITV commit every time there's a contract to be signed is because it's fan centric. It's like a beautiful place to be. Loads of people love the action. You don't get through a touring car weekend without there being a big talking point. There are a lot of championships, and I'm sure you cover a lot of championships, and you can walk away and think, what actually happened that weekend? It doesn't happen that often. So it was amazing to have the fans back, but I didn't really like queuing to get into the circuit, I must admit.
You didn't have to worry about that during COVID, did you? Yeah, didn't have to.
But I was so pleased, mate, because I speak to the fans quite a bit on social media, and I was, you know what, mate? I was just made up for them. I couldn't care less about anyone else. I was just... A lot of people who go and watch our sport, they're like the drivers, a lot of the gentlemen drivers and ladies who maybe pay their own way. They do it to get away from normality, and the fans are the same. They get away from normality, and that's their hobby, is to go and watch touring cars. When you take somebody's freedom away from them, let's say, because of the situation we're in, which is awful, but the right thing to do nonetheless. When they come back properly, and they were dead respectful. They come and see us outside the studio, me and Steve, and they were just mint. They were cool. I like a bit of a laugh, and they were sweet, mate. So yes, it was amazing for them to be back. I can't say anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, I was watching our British Touring Car editor on Downforce Radio, Sian Williams. She actually did a blog from the weekend. She was camping at the weekend, and I'm not kidding. Watching her blog, it looked like Christmas had come early. It was just, she was so happy to be back, and I'm sure that's echoed in every single fan that was there at the weekend. It's like, finally, at last, we can get back to what we do best. It was wonderful to see. There was another great feature of the weekend at Snetterton. The qualifying shootout. Now, this was discussed a heck of a lot coming into the event, thinking, is this going to work? Is this going to taint what we like about the British Touring Car weekend? it seems as though there is still divided opinion, but a lot of it seems to be quite positive. It looked pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I think we were spoilt last time we were at Snetterton when they first rolled this platform out about how to qualify in 2 segments. And I'm a fan of it because what happens is, and you know this, sometimes it's a copy and paste job and people just get used to it, so the teams know what they're doing, they know what they've got to do, but this just throws in another anomaly. So, it's great watching those top 10 go at it and have to come up with different things like, do we leave hot rears on, or do we just stick the fronts on? Do we put all 4 on if we can? So because they've been to Thruxton, the tyre carryover situation is different as well. So that's what we want, because at the end of the day, we've got weight and we've got different tyres in British touring cars. So why not throw in a bit of a quirky qualifying and hold our breath as Colin Turkington puts a lap together with weight on and bangs it on the pole. So yeah, it is. I think it's great, mate. And I think we should always be trying different things in such a format that works, because people want to see different things in touring cars. They just want to see action, and that's what it brings, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was listening to some of the drivers talking about it to Alan Hyde after the qualifying on Saturday. Tom Ingram was basically intimating that he sounded like a paranoid girlfriend when he was out of the car. Are we there? Are we in? Where are we? Are we there? So I guess it seems like an interesting new dynamic for the drivers as much as it is for the people watching.
Yeah, exactly, because you've got that cutoff that you need to be at. And it's a bit like F1, isn't it? But we're not as advanced as that, obviously, where, the teams already know from the simulations that the time they need to be aiming for is X. So they kind of know if they're in. British touring car, they don't, because to be honest, the drivers are like, as good as they are, the track can change so much in that amount of time that you can be sat there thinking, yeah, I'm sound. Next minute, you see someone go green in a sector where their personal best has been beaten by themselves. And it's like, I hope they don't carry that on for the rest of the lap or I'm out. So, it puts a lot of stress on the drivers. And it's good to get in the top 10, because then it did rattle around a bit. I was looking at the times earlier that, a lot of the people who qualified in the top 10 in the first edition of qualifying, it wasn't exactly the same for the second go of it. So it just shows that it does work and it does mix things up, just like a Super Pole, really. So yeah, it's quite cool. Remember the old days of Super Tourer where they used to do one lap?
Oh, yeah.
I remember watching it at Thruxton, and I remember thinking, if I ever drive a race car, I would hate to have to do that, because I'd be straight off at the first corner.
I mean, because that's it. You just put so much of your energy and intensity into that one lap. You're desperately trying to find the limit, and the limit is always breached when you've only got one lap to find it. It's like Kimi Räikkönen always used to mess up on one lap in qualifying, because you just push for the absolute limit all the way. And he would always be the first one to make a mistake. But again, I think that really adds to the excitement of it. I mean, we wouldn't have had another Ash Sutton storm through the field show if it weren't for things like that.
No, exactly. And that's what the fans want, because if we'd have had a full qualifying, I'm sure that Ash would have found more time, because he'd have been able to change a roll bar, stick some rebound in the car, or he'd have had time to come in and do something. So, we know how fast Ash is, so it's good to see him right at the back of the pack trying to come through.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. Right, there are a couple of driver changes coming into Snetterton. The biggest one, of course, in terms of the attention it got, was Jessica Hawkins getting a second go in British touring cars, replacing Andy Neate. Now, one of the things that really, really impressed me about all of this was, there was a lot of very controlled discipline and grace about how this was handled. Andy Neate has said, for personal reasons, I'm stepping away for this one. Jessica's getting it. The whole Neate family were behind Jessica Hawkins all weekend. I mean, there was still attendance. I think his daughter Ella was there at the side of the circuit and actually, cheering her on, and that tells to me an awful lot about the character of the way the family are going about this. And Jessica really got a massive amount of support from Motorbase to get the job done in a really good way. And again, she did a fantastic job.
Yeah, exactly. I'm fully with you. And like I said on the telly, I don't know if you've seen it, the situation that Andy's found himself in, I owe him nothing. He owes me nothing. I don't really know him that well. I've always tried to give a balanced opinion on Andy because I know what happened at Thruxton, and well, we all know what happened at Thruxton.
Exactly. We saw it.
It's done and it's dusted. We all make mistakes, but nobody deserves to have hate thrown at them as much as he did.
Absolutely not.
But not just him, his family, and that's what I think what got him You know, and I made my opinions clear on ITV4 with Steve Ryder, and the fans, as usual, mate, were absolutely mint to me on my following on Twitter. So yeah, and you know what? To go back to your question, I know Jessica knows the family really well, and that just shows unity within that situation. Who better than to put in the car than Jess? She was, for me, an absolute star of qualifying. It's too easy to look, Jake, and look at the thing and go, where's Jess Hawkins? Oh, 17th. Yeah, well, it's all right. 17th
not bad going.
17th out of 29 people, mate, in qualifying. She was not even a 10th off Josh Cook. She out-qualified Plato. She was a 10th off Ash Sutton. I mean, we're playing with proper players here. We're not messing around, mate. So, and I spoke to her, and every driver you talk to is like, oh, to find 2/10 at Coram. I know from speaking to some people in the team, she should have been in the top 10 shootout, mate. She messed up at Coram with other factors involved. So I'm made up for her. She's a proper woman, mate, and a proper driver.
I genuinely think she's full-time material. I've been speaking to her a couple of seasons now and watching some of the stuff that she's been doing in the mini challenge in sports cars and GTs, and she's been doing stunt driving, and she's obviously done sort of Formula One display days and things. She's one of the most diverse racing drivers in British motorsport at the moment. I genuinely think she deserves a crack at a full-time seat, and I'm kind of hoping that performances like that at Motorbase is enough to convince a sponsor to go, do you know what? I agree.
Yeah, it's an eye-opener because, listen, I'm not speaking about a gender here. I'm just saying she's come in and drove the car like you would expect a plug-and-play pro to come in. They could have asked anyone. They could have rang Dan Camish.
Yeah.
But they didn't, because they knew Jessica, you know, wanted to drive for Andy. Andy wanted Jessica to drive. Done. Job's done. And forget about how the races panned out for a mate, because you don't pull qualifying out of a hat. You pull the races out of a hat, mate. You know, you've seen enough races to know that you can be turned round when you've just done a pole lap. You'll never be spoken about again. Qualifying was there to see. Everyone was running to the regs like they do in the races, but they had the clean air. They went as fast as they could. Game over. That shows how good she is, mate. So yeah, I'm glad you picked that up, mate, because she did deserve the chat that she got.
She did indeed. You mentioned Dan Camish. Of course, he was with BTC Racing at the first round at Thruxton. Senna Proctor got the nod for Snetterton. And I think I'm right in saying the plan is for him to be in the car for the rest of the season now. Is that right?
Yes, that's what I've heard. And I think that was one of the reasons that you've seen him carrying ballast for, because Dan Camish had he was in the championship. I think, where was he in the championship before we started? He was up there anyway, but I think Senna had to carry his championship ballast as if it was still Dan, so it was 39 kilos. So that hindered him a bit in qualifying. As you've seen, all the FK8 Hondas hindered, except for Shedden in qualifying, and then he obviously got throughout. So Cookie and people like that who were carrying weight, that was what you would base yourself off if you're Senna. And Senna, you know, he only qualified 21st, but it was his first time in the car properly. And he had weight in the car. So, yeah, Senna's hopefully going to be there for the rest of the year in a great car. Watch out for Senna. When he gets his chance, he'll be up there and he'll be battling. So, yeah, it's good to see him back as well, because the family are lovely, Jake. Great people, mate.
Well, it was the perfect start to the weekend for Colin Turkington. Did an absolutely fantastic run. Pole position, fastest lap, race win in the first race of the season. Tom Ingram right up there in second position. Great performances in particular from Rory Butcher and Stephen Jelly. Great to see them back at the sharp end again. Good opening race one.
Yeah, it was a good opening race one. And like you just picked on, you know, Colin Turkington in the BMW, I was speaking to people about what would happen at Snetterton for qualifying. And, you know, Colin ended up on pole by nearly half a second. So 4/10, which is, you know, doesn't sound a lot, but it really is. It's a long circuit, but just shows you how good Colin is and the car are. So he did a great job, didn't he? Ingram battled him hard early doors, as he knows he has to, because of the front wheel drive. Toyota will start to go off a bit and the BMW pull away. So he tried to get the job done early doors. It was like exactly the same as last year. It was Tom and Colin early on. So yeah, they had a good battle early, but then it just drifted away. Colin got the job done. Rory Butcher, amazing to see Speedworks back up there with the Toyota and Rory. Love Rory to bits. I still regard him as one of the top 5 in the championship. He needed a result after Thruxton. Stephen Jelly, people do not understand how good Stephen Jelly is and will be as the season progresses, because Colin has not been pushed that much in his whole career in my eyes, and Steve wiped the floor with him at Rockingham in 2008. I think he won twice that day, and Turkington just followed him home. So that is a decent effort, you know what I mean? So I think Stephen's starting to get to grips with the BMW, and I think that there's signs from the team that they know when he gets it right, he'll be absolutely on it. So yeah, good stuff from Stephen as well, like you say.
Yeah, really good opener for Turkington. Got himself back into the mix, and Stephen Jelly, good points there along with Rory Butcher. Then we got into the second race. Turkington obviously did have the pole and the lead of the race at various points, but it was actually Ashley Sutton who came straight in, 11th in race 1. Boom, race 2. Ash Sutton being the masterclass driver that we know him to be. Turkington second. Ollie Jackson on the podium for the first time this year. Good to see him put in a good show, battling with Ingram and Butcher. Very interesting to see that Sutton is still very much up for the scrap, and I think it could be once again Sutton versus Turkington for the title, the way things are looking.
Yeah, I spoke to quite a few people, and like you rightly said, I mean, Ash, you run out of superlatives for Ash, and it's getting to the point now where people have it ingrained in them that British touring cars should be so equal that we should never see that. But for me, I did raise the question on ITV. I said if he would have gone on to win that last race of the day, where he finished second, and sorry to probably spoil it for everybody.
Spoil it.
Didn't see it before we talk about it. But yeah, Ash, you know, he's qualified. Where did he qualify? Ash was right down at 15th, you know, well off the pace. Comes through, gets a bit done in first race, but then just obviously they switched something on in that car, because it's not just Ash going, do you know what? I think I'll have a go now. So the engineering team are amazing, and they're doing a great job. And I did say on ITV, and it upset Ash, and I'll be dead honest on this programme. Ash texted me and he was like, mate, what you know, you sound like you're saying we're cheating. I'm not. I'm just asking the question, you know, if a Honda FK8 is behind you with no weight and a soft tyre, and he's on a harder tyre with full weight, you know, and he can't get past, it's a very interesting situation. No one's saying you're rubbish, Ash. They're just saying you're a bit too good, and that's all it is. And I back everyone up that supports Ash, but I do have to ask the question. So for him to win that race, mate, absolutely amazing. And he absolutely stroked it home, didn't he? I mean, I think he was the only person in the 56s in that race, 56.8. Everyone else was kind of not even in the low 57s. So great from him. Colin just knew he was defeated, so he finished second, picked the points up as he does as a champ. Ollie Jackson was amazing. Ollie won that race, didn't he, last year on a reverse grid?
Yes,
that was
he did.
His first ever race win, yeah. So Ollie knows the way around there. The Mantune engine's fantastic. The Focus has never looked so good chassis-wise, I'll be honest. And Rory had another great result in fifth. But yeah, it was good old little tussle, wasn't it, up the front?
Yeah, I really like to watch that one. I have to say, I'm a little bit baffled that people are still deciding that taking to, you know, the fan forums and, you know, being a bit of a keyboard warrior, saying there must be something with Ash Sutton's car. There must be something that means he can just come through the field like that. You know, they're still calling it a cheats game. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. We keep talking about this year upon year. Class rises to the top every time. I can't remember the last time I've seen these sort of things thrown at Turkington, or maybe they have been and I've not seen it. But it's baffling. You know, people are surprised when champions charge their way through to the front. That's because they're champions. They're so good at what they do.
Yeah, exactly. Jake, it's not as if he's in a new car. We've seen this before. You know, it's last year's championship winning car, and where he qualified was what he did last year. It looked pathetic, let's be honest, for what we know he can do. But then through the day, he just rises up. And if anybody thinks that Ash and the team would scupper themselves and sandbag in qualifying to then put themselves in such a dangerous position, it's just not going to happen. You may as well just go, do you know what? We'll just get to Turkington's pace and then we'll just pick him off when we want. You don't go and qualify 15th. I just think they're still learning about the car. I honestly do, at the certain circuits, because when they were there last year, it was freezing cold, you know, so it's that situation. The team are great. Ash is amazing. They're champions. That is the way it is. And like you say, mate, a lot of people don't race cars. And as a driver, I would be like Matt Neal probably and be like, what is going on with that car? Our Honda is so good. But it's it's just that sport. Look at Red Bull. Look at Mercedes. Christian and Toto, they're always on the phone to each other, having a giggle. They're mates, I'm sure of it. When it comes to being in the media, you will throw them under the bus so much because
of course you will, yeah.
How you win. It's psychology. He wants Ash to. People want Ash at the minute. The other drivers want Ash to be like, oh God, this is getting a bit too much pressure because it gets in your head. But Ash is a champion; he'll deal with it. It's good. And Ash is amazing. Ash is the best driver on the grid. Full stop.
Yeah, it's great. It's great sport, which is what we love about it, and that's how it should be. You're absolutely right. Race 3, the reverse grid, obviously brings a bit of a factor into it every time. But Tom Ingram giving Accelerate Motorsport their first win of the season, and obviously technically for Trade Price Cars and Dan Kirby their first win of 2021 as well. So great to see them do a good job. Hello to Dan and the boys, by the way. Ash Sutton, second position. Third place, Gordon Shedden. Now, this is interesting because this is a bit of a pattern now from round 1 at Thruxton and here at Snetterton as well. Gordon is, as always, pretty good at getting himself into a decent situation in time for race 3. But the first 2 races in both rounds have been a bit of a hiccup. But the old flash magic is still sort of there. It's kind of coming back, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's been dealt some cards, hasn't he? Obviously, with Thruxton, he had that accident that wasn't really his fault, even though he did start it by tapping Jack, who was maybe a bit early on a lift. I don't know at Thruxton, but anyway, all that said, yeah, Gordon knows how to come through the back. The champions and the proper drivers know about, the weekend isn't won in the first race, so you have to take the pain in the first race. If you're at the back, get into the second race, try and get a reverse grid, and then try and make your way forward. So yeah, I mean, Gordon in that third race in particular had everything in his. He was on a soft tyre, it was the faster tyre. He had no weight in the car. So he was always going to move forward. But what can Gordon do if he doesn't get disqualified in qualifying? And that was for a technical infringement with the wing. He was on pole. So he really, I think he'd have struggled to win maybe the first 2 races, but he'd have won at least one of them off the front row of the grid. But yeah, he found himself in that situation. He'll now go to the next round after finishing third, and it'll be a relief. Even a champion of his stature and nature, it'll have got in his head that it's not going for him. But now, having that podium and being up there with the proper guys who are fighting for the title, it'll be good for him, mate. So yeah, you'll see more of Gordon, definitely.
So we think at Brands, we might well see Flash back to his best.
I think you will see Gordon, don't quote me on this, I think you will see Gordon, he's going to be carrying 9 kilos, I think.
I think it's 9.
Yeah, being 10th in the championship. He has to win at least one of those races. Has to. And if you were going to bet your house on something you had to, you'd think Sheds, he'll do the job. Yeah. So I think you're going to see now the force of the FK8, Halfords, and Team Dynamics and Sheds. This will be it now, next round onwards.
Interesting. So after the Snetterton round, there are a few little factors that I want to pull out here. We've already touched on Stephen Jelly, but his consistency at Snetterton, I think that's almost gone under the radar because he came away from Snetterton a 4th, a 5th, and a 7th, and now he finds himself 1 point off the top 6 in the Drivers' Championship. I think Jelly's a bit of a dark horse for a run at the top 5 here.
Yeah, as you say, he's actually he picked up some really good points, and I think. For people for Tom Oliphant, that's a wake-up call, really, because he's dealt with Andrew Jordan in the past, but, it was his first year, so you don't really take notice of what's going on up the front because you're just trying to learn off him. But now Tom will be feeling the pressure because Jelly, I mean, those results that you've just reeled off, they are not championship looking at results, but if you carried on that way and made it a 4th, a 5th, a 3rd every weekend, you're then knocking on the door of the championship. So You're dead right. But Stephen come away from Snetterton like his personality, under the radar. Lovely, job done. But did we see it? No,
that's true. It's a good point.
But will we see it? Yes. And you know what, Stephen, just on a personal note, he's one of the nicest, and he can be one of the funniest people out there.
Yeah.
And he's, and listen, you don't do F3 and be up the front and you're rubbish. He's good.
Yeah.
And, he is a proper lad and he's so fit as well. Like he does triathlons and all sorts. And That's what a lot of the top drivers are looking like now. You look at Rory Butcher, he looks like an F1 driver.
Yeah.
These boys are pushing on. You know, these boys, like Jess Hawkins, she'll be fit as a fiddle. You know, W Series, Aston Martin and people like that, they're not idiots. They're not going to give some idiot a go with a car.
That's it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's phenomenal when you consider, like, sort of even as long ago as 5-6 years ago, British touring car drivers would never be a stranger to a fish supper. I mean, I'm not saying they would be lanky, but, you know, they would enjoy their food, you know, they eat what they want to eat, and they knew they could still push it on Sunday. Now, they're really starting to think, hang on a minute, some of these young whippersnappers, they're in the gym 14 hours a day. I think I might actually have to try and catch up with them now. Would you have been at that level, Paul? Would you have ever pushed it to that level?
Jake, I'll tell you one thing, mate. My career was in two parts. 2002 and 2003, I was fittish. I was young. I was more young than fit.
Right.
So I won some races, but it was like the Premiership in the mid-90s when there was still drinking culture. There was, James Thompson doesn't race that much anymore, so I will tell you, that lad will have turned up a few weekends on the banks, not over the limit, but maybe with a bit of a hangover.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me somehow from some of the stories I've heard.
Yeah, you know, so I'm not saying I was exactly the same, but I seen that and I was like, okay, well, these people can be, they're human, they can be beaten. So I kind of tried to stay away from the drink through the week. You know, sometimes I must admit, as the year went on, like on a Thursday, I'd be in a club up in near Croft, battered, and then by Saturday, the hangover had just about gone, and that was me done. But now, mate, that does not. It's like Premiership football. That does not happen. That you would be looked at and be like, what? You know, days have gone. To be fair, if Rob Austin come back in the Championship, he would understand how much the Championship's moved on, and that wasn't that long ago. Rob is a naturally talented guy, but his natural talent would not be able to keep up with the fitness of those guys now. It's a game changer, mate. I'm so glad I got my job done early doors, because I'd be still outside the kebab shop getting smashed up and trying to chat to anyone.
I still recall a fabulous Rob Austin story from a charity karting race a few years ago. Rick Parfitt Jr., bless him, turns up on one of these fantastic Chinese flywheels, you know, zipping around the paddock. Oh, have you seen this? And Rob Austin, who I think had started before we'd even got on the racetrack, basically said, oh, go on, let me have a go. It'll be good fun. A very expensive broken flywheel later. Rick Parfitt knows not to trust Rob Austin with anything. But it is funny how we've moved, you know, how the times have changed. I mean, even people like Jason Plato have had to up their fitness recently, but he's enjoying the challenge of it. You know, I can see it in him. He is looking like a spring chicken again. He's really enjoying the challenge of having to meet the new demands.
Yeah, what he did at Thruxton was phenomenal. Like, absolute. A year out, comes back. I mean, he had a bit of a shaky Snetterton, but so did some of the other Championship guys. You didn't see Josh Cook all weekend, except for the last race.
That's a good point.
So, you know what I mean? The weight murdered them. Like, Jason just was nowhere. And he knows that he'll have to take the pain at places like that because some cars work with the weight. Jake Hill's car, he was amazing in the first race.
Yeah, he was.
You know, with the weight in. So, but then it dropped away from him as the weekend went on. But Jake knows you lead the Championship one day, and then what does he find himself now?
He's fifth
down.
now.
Yeah, he's down in fifth place. But he knows you just take the pain. It's all about winning the British Touring Car Championship is how you deal with the disappointment. The people you see winning that championship are the ones who've dealt with the disappointment. It's not how they've dealt with how good they were when they won the race. It's not that at all. It's how you deal with it. So it's a percentage game. And like you say about the fitness of Plato, stop smoking, stopped his drinking to a point. I know he likes a gin and tonic on a allegedly. But yeah, I've seen Jason take his fitness a lot more seriously now. Even more seriously, I would say, and I don't know him massively well to go around his house, but he's probably fitter than he was in the Super Tourer day for his age. Definitely.
Could be very interesting. There's another name actually that is conspicuous by its absence, and I think it's worth pointing out after 2 rounds. Tom Chilton. What has happened to Tom Chilton on his return? Because let's be fair, we've had 2 weekends and his best result is a 13th, and he's only finished in the points twice. Is there alarm bells coming maybe for Tom Chilton?
I don't think we can judge him just yet. What I will say is I think you need to scrub Thruxton. So I think because he had technical problems and a few issues that were out of his control, I think. But if his round 1 is Snetterton, I would start to question what's going on in my head, because Adam Morgan, on the other hand, I thought he'd come alive at Snetterton.
Oh, he's been brilliant.
Yeah. He come alive. He had a good weekend and he will build on that. But Tom Chilton, we're just used to Tom being super fast. But I think Josh Cook last year shown how good Josh Cook is. And it was, he knew the car, to be fair. And Tom come in and only had did he have a podium on a reverse grid, I remember? But he was nowhere else, to be fair. And I know how good Tom is. I regard Tom as one of the fastest front wheel drive drivers over one lap for a quali. And great in a race, obviously. But is this just too much that he's bit off? I don't know. And only he could answer that. It'd be interesting to see. But you're dead right, mate. You've got to ask the question. It's what's going on there. You've got to be... We'll get to Brands. I'll guarantee you it will be his best weekend up to now. Guarantee you, mate. He's phenomenal around there. He'll be okay.
Yeah, it is a Tom Chilton track, to be fair. But yeah, 5 points after 6 races. There's got to be some alarm bells. Let's look at the championship very briefly. Ash Sutton is on 80 points. He leads with a worst result of 11th. So that just goes to show you, you just keep pushing on. You keep digging and you can get those points. Ash Sutton, 80 points. Tom Ingram on 78. Colin Turkington on 75. 5 points between the top 3. Really exciting. Josh Cook is there on 60 in 4th. Jake Hill, 57. Down to 5th position, but still very much in the hunt. Rory Butcher climbing the ladder again on 47 now. Stephen Jelly consistent on 46. Jason Plato, no points at Snetterton, but still in the top 10 on 38. Ollie Jackson and Gordon Shedden with podiums now creep into the top 10. It's getting very, very exciting in the fight for the title. What can we expect from the rookies this season? Well, there has been a very impressive rookie thus far, and that is Dan Rowbottom coming in for his first full season, and he has won all but one of the Jack Sears Trophy races so far. Very impressive from Dan, especially when you consider he's stepping into Matt Neal's hot seat. That comes with a massive amount of pressure.
Yeah, it is. It's a big statement, isn't it? Let's be honest. He did have one full season, didn't he? So he's had one full season with Sicily, I think, and then
yes, you're right. Fair play.
Then he had with COVID and everything. He then didn't race. So you forget, because his name is synonymous with British touring cars. He's been around for the 3rd year. It really isn't. You're dead right. It's like he's had a year out, and that is hard work in itself. So, like you say, I think Dan, I hear so many good things about Dan Rowbottom from Clio's and karting and everything going backwards. He's got Matt Neal there who will, take him under his wing. I spoke to Matt earlier in the week, and Matt was very cautious about the results that Dan would get, which I found really interesting. At the time he said it, because he was like, we're looking at Gordon being on the front row, or we'd be on pole. What about Dan? Well, yeah, if we get to the top 10, we'll be happy. And I thought, it's a bit disrespectful. He's in an FK8 with no weight. He's a good driver. But they were right to be cautious, because he nearly made Q2. So, they're treating him with kid gloves, because it's a long-term project, this, I think, for him and his main backer, Cataclean. So, yeah, I think you're dead right. He's doing a good job as it is. It's only his 2nd proper year, and it's big shoes to fill, like metaphorically, as well as it is massive shoes to fill, because he's about size 15. So, yeah, I think he's going to be all good. He will come out with it'll be a reverse grid, podium or win that will change his season, I think. It's one of those situations, Jake.
Yeah, we could well see it, of course, next time out at Brands Hatch. And we're not going to have to wait as long as we did for Snetterton for the Brands Hatch on the Indy circuit. It's obviously not this weekend, but the weekend after. So there's not a lot of time in between races for people to get their act together if they need to. This is going to be a very interesting point of the season, because it's going to reach the 1/3 stage. And there's a lot of drivers, obviously, that were kind of conspicuous by their absence at Snetterton for many different reasons. Plato, even Josh Cook to a certain extent, Jake Hill, that will want to get themselves back into the title fight. Sutton, Ingram and Turkington just want to clear off into the distance. But people like Shedden, like Morgan, like Aidan Moffat, like Tom Chilton, they really want to get their act together now and start banging in some good results. What do you think we can expect to see when we get to Brands Hatch?
It's another circuit that the weight is not fantastic. I think we can, let's not write off Ash Sutton. No. I think qualifying will be very difficult. It's not like Snetterton. It's a short time that you've got to get round, stopping and starting with 75 kilos of ballast. So I think Ash will be out of position. Ingram will be out of position. I think he will be a bit further back. Colin, I think out of the top three, Colin will have the better qualifying and maybe the better first race with the ballast that he'll be carrying. I think we've got to look for, like you say, Cook, Hill, Plato, definitely, and Shedden coming back into that fight, because it'll be role reversal with Plato on plus 9 kilos. Plato on plus 21 kilos, Shedden on plus 9. I think you're going to see those guys, plus a little random Oliphant or a Jelly at the front with hardly any weight in. So, the rear-wheel drive cars, I would say, they're the ones that you look at that will be the furthest ones up. So, yeah, I think it's going to be those kind of people who are coming in with no weight again and just trying to take it to the guys that have kind of edged away from them at Snetterton because they've been in position. So looking at it, though, Hill will just be devastated about how many points he's lost. So Motorbase's home circuit, down the road, Jake Hill, down the road, knows the place. I think he'll be like, if he can qualify like he did at Snetterton, he'll be in for another weekend where it'll put him in the top 5 of the championship and battling again where he deserves to be, in my opinion.
Interesting predictions. I think it could be very spicy when we get to Brands Hatch. Right, we did say last time at the Thruxton edition that we were going to give you guys the chance to ask some questions to Paul O'Neill. I think you decided to christen it Access Paul Areas, which is a fabulous title, Paul. We're going to run with that. So, questions for Paul O'Neill. We've had a few of you submit some questions. Thank you all very much indeed for those who did. If you want to, you can just send us a message via our social media at Downforce Radio, whether you're on Instagram, Facebook or Twitter. Put a little tag in there for hashtag the undercut, and we will try and pick them up. You can obviously send your questions in for next time. Here are the ones we're going to ask you, Paul. Feel free to answer them as candidly or as absent-mindedly as you wish. It's entirely up to you. There's nobody going to be putting any pressure on you. So the first one, Emma Featherstone would like to know your favourite circuit in the country and in the world. Very different questions there.
Oh, God. Can it be the same one in the country?
I guess, yeah, absolutely. If your favourite circuit in the world is in this country, then why not?
Yeah, do you know what? And this will upset a lot of people at Alton Park, but for me, the only time I used to get really excited to go to a racetrack, I mean, I was obviously excited, but when I was like, yes, I can imagine what it's like going around here in this car. Brands Hatch GP, the best circuit, for me, the best circuit in the world. I just think it's narrow enough and fast enough out the back that it grabs your attention. People sometimes say Spa-Francorchamps and things like that. I mean, amazing. What a place. Too wide. Everything I've drove, never had enough power. So I like it, but I'm not. I'd rather go to Brands Hatch and risk my life out the back. That's what gets me out of bed. The other thing I want to say, though, that's the best circuit in the world for me. The other thing I want to say, though, Jake, is that in the UK, Knock Hill is somewhere that I absolutely adore. So I'm going to say UK, best track, Knock Hill, best track in the world for me, Brands Hatch. And let me just tell everybody, I've been to a lot of circuits around the world. So don't just think I'm saying it because I haven't been out the UK. Oh, Paul O'Neill has been around the world, mate.
He has been around the world, yeah. I think you've kept a lot of it on the down low, but you've done a heck of a lot of work globally. So it's to the credit of the British motorsport industry that your top circuit in the world is Brands Hatch. Fair play. I have to say that I love the shout out to Alton Park as well, because I'm like you in the sense that for me, a great race circuit is an old school circuit with opportunities to really get it wrong. I mean, that's my big fundamental issue with F1. And I think it's something that the British Touring Car Championship has still got right. You know, there are plenty of circuits where if you get it wrong, like Brands, like Knock Hill, like Alton Park, like Thruxton, if you get it wrong, it's going to hurt. So don't get it wrong.
Yeah, and that's what makes a race circuit. And I don't want to see people have big accidents and get hurt and for the sake of it. But you're dead right. I would love to see Verstappen, Raikkonen, Hamilton, all those guys go into Jackie Stewart's era and just deal with what he had to deal with, because that is the difference between going full throttle, opening up your steering lock and going, do you know what, I'll just run wide and take a 5-second penalty this time. It's
so pathetic as a racing driver, isn't it?
It is, mate. You know the deal.
Yep. So we'll move on to the next one. Hisley L. Fox would like to know, what was the strangest moment you've ever had to commentate on? That's a fabulous question.
Oh, that is a good one. And let's just tell everybody, mate, that I have not seen these questions at all.
No, we've not given him any warning about what these questions are going to be.
You've just the strangest thing. Do you know what, actually? I reckon it was, I can't remember what year it was. Me and Richard John Neal were commentating on a Ginetta GT4 Super Cup race. And I don't want to say the name of one of the drivers because I might get it wrong, but there was definitely Walkinshaw. What was his first name? Was it Fergus Walkinshaw?
Fergus Walkinshaw.
I missed Fergus, actually. He's a nice lad. He had a coming together with somebody else after the checkered flag. And we didn't know whether it was a replay or not. And then I got told by the director, Paul, it's live pictures. And I went into this weird, like, David Attenborough-esque commentary going, you are seeing live pictures of this Walkinshaw. And they had, I can't remember which way around it was, but him and another person, and sorry to Fergus if he was on the receiving end, I can't remember, but the other driver was involved, and they'd had a coming together in the race, and then one of them just smashed into the other, going down the back of the thing. And I get all defensive of the marshals and the track, the circuit people, the safety people. So you obviously don't do that. And that was weird, mate, as well as dangerous. But yeah. What about you, actually? I'm going to ask you. You do more commentary than me.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, I suppose I have to put my karting hat on and say one of the strangest moments has got to be Luca Corberi last year throwing the fairing at Paolo Ippolito. I mean, that went viral, and goodness me.
He's just ended up with the consequences of it now, hasn't he?
Well, yeah, he's been banned for 15 years, but apparently he's appealing it. So I thought he was all apologetic and said, well, I'm going to quit racing anyway. Interesting. Wonder what changed. But yeah, a very, very strange moment. There have been some weird ones. That's what I love about motorsport. It's not as predictable as other forms of sport where it's just the same game, the same match, the same style of sport every time. It's incredibly variable and it changes every year. So you do get some mad moments. I'll give you that. You do get some mad moments. Right. Let's bring you to the next one. Michael Gillespie. Bless a Scotsman to ask you an appropriate question. What's your favourite Spice Girls song? I bet you've got one. I bet you've got one.
Do you know what? I don't really listen to them.
Oh, I don't believe that. I've seen your car stereo.
Can I change that question?
Yes, you can.
I'll tell you what. What's my most horrible Spice Girls song? And I'll tell you straight away, it's Wannabe, because the beginning of that, where it's, I'll tell you what I want. And as soon as I hear that, I know that there is no public house or event that I will go to that some cretin has put on because they like it. They've put it on because they've seen me turn up and thought, watch this lad sweat now.
That's the bane of your life.
Exactly. So I'm throwing myself well and truly under a double-decker bus here. But when people do that, I want to find the DJ and put my thumb into something that might hurt him. I'm just going to quickly delete that from the Downforce Radio library. Bear with me a moment. Yeah, so it never comes on when you're on the road. It's an interesting one. Well, there is another comedy question that's come through, which is your favourite Spice Girl, but I'm not going to throw you under that bus. That you don't have to answer. That's fine. I'll answer that one.
Oh, you will answer that one.
Oh, mate, listen, don't you worry about me, lad. Who's my favourite Spice Girl? People think it's my sister. Well, it's not, because siblings don't really get on. She's no. So Mel B was always my fave. We had proper giggles, and I get on really well with her sister Danielle, who's my age or a bit younger. Yeah. But yeah, Mel B was an absolute star. And bless her, she's had problems over the years, like everyone has. But I don't speak to her. It's not as I'm one-on-one with her. But yeah, she always looked after me. She was from up north. She knew the deal. And she had to deal with a lot of stuff that people don't know about. And I really like Mel, because she was always dead sound to my family as well. So we get on well. Yeah.
Fair play. We like that answer. Here's Topher Smith's question. Topher Smith would like to know, if you could drive any racing car on any circuit, which car and where?
This sounds like an Xbox question.
It does a bit. I was just going to say, yeah, fair play. I'll meet you on Forza Motorsport after the show. Excellent.
I'm rubbish on them games.
Oh, fair play.
Do you know what? I've never been there. Well, I've been there to watch the race once in 2001. I would love to drive a Super Cup Porsche around Monaco. So basically, I would like to be Michael Crease.
You would like to be Michael Crease, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Minus the little shunt. Minus the little shunt. We don't talk about that.
I'd have never gone through that gap. I'd have never done.
Oh, well, there you go. You've laid it on him. But no, I know exactly what you mean. I've commentated Super Cup from Monaco before, and people think it's the dullest, drabbest race in the entirety of motorsport. But you've got to think about it from the driver's point of view. That is one heck of a challenge.
Yeah, that's like you said, the F1 drivers ain't going to say, well, we spoke about danger. That I could not imagine driving around there in a rental car flat out. Imagine what it's like in an F1 car. And they don't care about the racing. The drivers don't care about the racing around Monaco. They're not thinking, I'm going to get down the inside here or I'm going to try and round the outside, because you can't do it. It's the challenge of pushing themselves. Ayrton Senna, that was the man, wasn't it? I'm going to nail Prost for a second and a half or whatever it was he was on pole by. It's the personal challenge. It's nothing about anyone else who's on track with you. It's the personal challenge. And I
completely agree with you. Monaco is about the driver, not about the spectator at all. Lewis Bassendale writes, what tips would you give to someone wanting to be a motorsport commentator or pundit? That's a good question, because you were a former driver, so I guess in a way it comes more naturally to you in a way. But yeah, it's a good question from Lewis.
It is a good question, Jake. But do you know what, mate? You'd be better answering this, but I'll let you say your bit in a minute, mate, because you're, let's be honest, fella, and I'm not being disrespectful, you've come from sleeping in a Saxo, which I know about.
Yeah, you do know about.
So, let's be honest, mate. I think to answer his question, I think you've got to want it as bad as you've wanted it. And you look at where you are now, and it's amazing. I think it's great, mate, what you've done. I think do you know what, mate? It's not for me to answer. I think it's for you to answer this one, actually, because I know that, well, I don't know, but I can only imagine what it's been like to be somebody that doesn't come from money, someone that's never had a sister that's paid for the racing, and when they first started and been able to get all that information and then go into commentary because somebody liked you at ITV. You've not had that, mate. You've had to work harder than me, and that's me being dead straight. So you tell me.
I tell you, I suppose so. I mean, it is always harder when you come from passion but not influence. And you and I both know, I mean, we've seen it many, many times before over the last 2-3 decades. It's who you know in racing. It is who you know. Yeah. So if you know nobody, it's very hard to make an impression. But yeah, I think energy is very important. I think people can read through people. If you're there for the money, then you're going to be quite false. If you're there because you love the sport, I think that is your biggest secret weapon. I think it's your biggest secret ingredient. And I'm fortunate personally in that I genuinely love any form of motorsport at all. And I literally classify it as anything from karting to robot wars to lawnmower racing to touring cars to single seaters to GT. So you can literally throw yourself at anything and go, yep, this is motorsport. I'm interested. And there have, it is funny. You mentioned about the sleeping in the Saxo. There have been some very strange months where you go from literally, falling asleep in the corner of the Silverstone wing because you can't afford a hotel one week, and then you're flown off to the Le Mans 24 hours and you're accidentally shaking hands with Jackie Chan the next. It's such a bizarre sport, and it doesn't prepare you for the roller coaster ride that you have going from one event to the next. It's very, very strange. Blind passion and a reality and an expectation that not every weekend is going to be worth £1 million.
And I think, just to add to that, mate, I think to answer as well, if you're really dead set on doing this, nothing else has to matter, especially from your side of things, mate. I do different things. I kind of fell into my role because I was asked to do punditry first, and then an opportunity come up to commentate. And I hope you agree with this, Jake, to answer the question that we've had put to us. I think you have to have your own USP as well. And when I say that, I mean how you talk. We both do commentary differently. I do it, try to be funny, but also I try to give the people at home the story of how the cars are operating and things like that, because I've been in them. Whereas you're amazing with information and you know how racing cars work because either you've done it in the past and then you've been able to just watch so many cars and know how they work as well. And that's two different ways of commentating. Tim Harvey's the same. He's technical. David Addison, it's voices and it's how you portray your voice. Richie John Neal, one of the best
Oh, it's
The
sensational.
best commentators I've ever worked with. And
I genuinely don't know how Richard does it, because he will literally go from Ginetta's one week to Trucks another week to Mazda's another week. I mean, that man is the McDonald's of motorsport commentary. He can literally just be so versatile and do everything. And it doesn't matter where you are in the country. It doesn't matter what form of motorsport he's talking about. It's always A game. He's always on his A game.
Yeah. And also with Richard as well, what the club racers don't realise who he's covering, they do not realise how much that man fights their corner for whoever he's producing the TV for. ITV4, I've seen him in proper battles about stuff that's happened. If an AM in a different class than the top class has won the championship, and it's kind of not gone unnoticed on purpose, but the championship is not on the series all the time, and we've kind of missed it. Richard's straight in there. Need to interview that guy. Need to interview that guy. Need to interview that guy. And that's what people don't realise about Richard, because he's quite a quiet guy, to be fair, offline.
Well, I would love to try and get him in here for an undercut with the three of us together. I think we would learn so much more about the support series.
Let's do that. I think we should do that.
We will do a support series special. We'll get Richard John Neal in, and all the guys who are interested in the Ginettas, in the Minis, in the British F4, in the Porsche Carrera Cup. You're going to get so much of a flavour from Richard John Neal. That man is absolute gold dust. Right, let's continue. Gemma Dixon would like to know, this is a very interesting question. Have you ever played the Stig on Top Gear? Now, that's an interesting one, because I think everybody is well aware of the fact now that Black Stig originally was Perry McCarthy, and White Stig, for the most part, was obviously Ben Collins. But there has been a few mysteries that maybe there were more than two Stigs. Go on, come on, spill the beans. It's ancient history now. It's ancient. Did you ever do it?
I know who the other guys were that weren't Ben Collins.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and you do as well, mate. So mind your neck. But you're just more pro than me.
I don't throw people under the bus unless they've given.
No, well, where I come from, mate, you don't grass people up, so I'm not going to. But no, I hand on my heart, speaking as I always do, honestly, to you guys and anyone else. Never, ever, ever have I put the white or the black suit on. Okay. I've worked on Top Gear for an episode where it was taxis racing with Neal, Jackson, Reedy. One of the best days I've ever had around Liddon Hill, I think it was. Yes. But I have been asked to go down to, I think it was Chobham, to do kind of a screen test. Not for the Stig, but it may have been to look and see what it was going to be like. But it got pulled off because it was snowing, and I couldn't make the next one because I was away with work. And it was more to do probably with driving the cars when the presenters had to be doing something else, and we had to get B-roll. If anyone doesn't know B-roll. So
you could have been Richard Hammond's stand-in.
Exactly, yeah. Look just like him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're the same height and everything. Amazing.
Crash just like him.
Well, that's an interesting one. So not the Stig, but you were very nearly Jeremy Clarkson's stand-in.
Exactly.
That could have been interesting. Right, Dave Goddard. Oh, bless him. He will always ask the cheeky question. Dave Goddard wants to know, British touring cars or TCR? Whoa! Okay. Right, we're getting controversial now. Okay. Again, you do not have to answer this one seriously, because this is a massive can of worms. Okay, I'm aware. Look, I'm going to be politically correct and say they're both amazing. They are both fantastic. They are completely different entities. We love them both. Move on. But this is your choice. You know, you can answer this however you want.
TCR pay me more money, so I like them better.
Okay, perfect. We'll move on. Excellent. Excellent. Right, we'll leave it at that before we get anywhere further. Right, Jonathan Bennett. A very serious question, this one, and a very good one, actually, to end on. Jonathan Bennett asks, what advice would you give to new racing drivers to attract sponsorship? This is a really good question, because you've had some very interesting sponsorship deals and great negotiations and things that have taken place over the years. So this is a corking good question.
Do you know what, Jake? I'm going to really disappoint you here, mate. Really disappoint you. Because, so 2002 and 2003, when it was Egg, then Vauxhall, I'm not going to hide behind anything here, mate. My sister paid me to be in those two teams, Triple Eight, yeah. Not a lot of money because it was subsidised by Ed Credit Card the first time and Vauxhall Motorsport the next time. So I paid, but it wasn't a massive amount of money to see now. But when I come back I did 2 races in 2006, which basically Fiona Leggett was in the car and then she moved out of the car and there was budget already in the car. So I just turned up and drove, plugged in and played. That was me, done.
Okay.
When I come back properly in 2009 with sunshine.co.uk, again, the team, which I drove for in 2006, instead of Fiona, Tech Speed Motorsport, they had the sponsorship in place. I have never, this is terrible to say this, I've done 2 sponsorship deals and they were both personal sponsorship deals. On my helmet to pay my wages, Fujifilm was one of them. And the rest of it has just been not massaging egos, but showing how good you are. And it's all about return on investment. What you can do. Look at Michael Crease is a brilliant example. Yeah. What you can do for the names that are on your car. It's not just about stickers that are plastered on a car. You've got to be able to interact with the company, interact with the marketing director, the managing director, the CEO, the owners. You've got to interact with them. Getting the foot in the door and speaking to them. My deals didn't just end. Sunshine were in for another year. And that was because 1, the results were good. 2, they loved the team. 3, I really got on with them and they were friends as well. So it's all about relationships and what can you do for them? Don't worry about, can you just pay for me tyres, mate, and these stickers. You've got to go. Do you know what was a really interesting conversation I had? I can't remember who it was. It was that interesting. No, who was it? I was talking to someone the other day about sponsorship, and they were saying do you know what it was? It was Max Coates. Max Coates was telling me that he went to do a college course, and then it might have even been a degree where he worked on marketing and stuff like that. So he understood what people from companies would want. So, because as a youngster, if you're 19 or 18 and you're going into companies and saying, I need 200 grand, they're just going to look at you and go, shut up. You know what I mean? You're a child. But what Max said was, because he understood it so well, they took him seriously. And he's a great person to talk about because he can tell them what to expect and how it works. I couldn't go to a sponsor now and say, oh, you'll get X, Y, and Z on ITV because I don't actually really know. I just worked. For me personally, it was just because I've got a gob on me. Fortunately, I can make some people laugh, and the people that I made laugh give me money because they were like this guy. Cameras will always pick up on someone I found out that have got something to say. Plato, Tom Ingram's becoming a person who is very articulate, and cameras would rather speak to them because it's an easy interview than someone who doesn't say anything. And that is what it's about. You need to get your own unique selling point and work on them and then take it forward.
I'm so glad you picked up on Tom Ingram because when I first met him back in 2012, 2013, I mean, he was Ginetta Junior. He was coming up through the ranks and he was a ridiculously fast driver, incredibly talented behind the wheel. He was always happy when you got out of the car, but there was a little bit of a shyness to him. He wasn't quite confident in himself. He wasn't quite Tom Ingram yet. He wasn't quite the full package. But the second he became Tingram, had that sort of like quick brand name to him, and he's been able to work on it. He's been able to figure out what the companies want, what the sponsors are interested in. And he has completely transformed. And I record this when I was interviewing him after the podium at Thruxton. And I thought, bloody hell, mate, you have changed so much for the better in the last 8 years. You've become one of the most engaging, funny, entertaining, brilliant showman of the British Touring Car Championship. And that was from a kid in Ginettas to now become one of the biggest figureheads in the sport. I mean, the guy is very reminiscent of John Cleland now in the sense that he just has that persona. He has that charisma and people adore it. It's wonderful what he's done to himself.
Yeah. And it will only get stronger for Tom and people like Ginsters. That deal, when I spoke to Tom, was the foundations were built years ago. Planted a seed in the head, watched his progression. When the time was right, Tom operates now like a CEO. And I see, and he is a businessman first and a racing driver second. I'll guarantee you that. And that's how Plato operated. When you speak to Plato and you speak to Ingram, both mention each other because they know how clever and good they are at making business work for their passion. That is the end of it. So that is the way to do it. Do you know what? I would give advice to people who want to do it. Go and get some education, proper education, and find out what people want, and then get your own mold and build on it. That Jake, that goes for me as well. I'm different than when I was driving, because I know what works when you're driving, and I know what works when you've got corporate brands like BMW who back me and I have a relationship with, and also ITV4. That's the way it is, mate. And you're the same, and you've got to where you are because you know what works, and we're genuine guys as well. I think that helps as well massively.
It definitely helps. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I was a bit of an arsehole, as some people would like me to be, I don't think I'd actually make it in the sport at all. But there you are. That's the way. It's the gift of the gap. Thank you so much to everybody for contributing questions. It's really, really good. We'll do it again next time as well after Brands Hatch. Access Paul areas. If you've got a question for Paul O'Neill, throw it our way and we will make whatever mincemeat we can of it. Dude, it is always a pleasure. We love doing the show and we love the podcast. It's been absolutely amazing. We're really excited for Brands Hatch. Thank you, Paul, once again. Amazing.
No problem, mate. It's been amazing. Thanks to everyone who's tuned in. Thank you so much for the questions. And Jake, again, usual rules, mate. Top job. It's great to be on here with you, mate.
Always. We'll do it again for the next edition after Brands Hatch, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in to The Undercut on Downforce Radio. Thank you and goodbye.